Morning, everyone. Welcome to the September meeting of the Binghamton Local Development Corporation. I'd like to call the meeting to order. You have in front of you a draft of the minutes for the July 22nd regular meeting. Whenever anyone's ready, I'll take a motion. Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Brian. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you all very much. Rachel, you want to walk us through the financials?
Yeah, so you have in front of you the July and August financials, so we'll go through both of them quickly. We start with July. And then the page 4. For the restricted account at the end of July, the end of month balance was $800,128.16. On the receivable page, just hand in hand paying right along, which is great. Skipping over to page 6 for the UDAG account, the end of month balance in UDAG for July was $996,167.42. On the receivables page, we have, kind of the usual suspects in default. So nothing new there. Skipping to the unrestricted account, there was no activity really. In the Triad account, no activity. In the veterans account, no activity, and in grant account, no activity. So you can see on the final page, page 5, all of the delinquent loans that were there previously are still there. So at the end of July, the delinquency percentage of all loans not designated non-performing is 0.6.
Just wait till August.
Yeah, great stuff happened in August.
All right.
So we'll start again on page 4 for restricted account. End of month balance and restricted was $553,331.07. Again, on the receivable page, hand in hand paying right along. Skipping over to page 6 for the UDAG account, the end of month balance in UDAG was $674,656.38.
That includes, it's a big drop because we paid the Boscom's money that we owe.
Yes.
And we still owe a little bit more. We're waiting for them to complete the project, but we paid them what they're owed to date on the maintenance.
That hurt.
Big
Yes.
chunk.
We will hopefully be reimbursed for that through this process we're going through. But at the end of the day, it is our building and our responsibility. I know we talked about that a lot at the last meeting, so I appreciate your support on getting that out the door.
So on the receivables page for UDAG for August, we had a couple of payoffs. North Depot paid off, which is great. They paid off both of their loans. So the special projects as well as the facade loan have been paid off. And other than that, everything kind of remains the same with people who are in default. We'll skip over to the unrestricted account. We had a sponsorship come into the account for the Columbus Day Parade. That's what that is. In the Triad account, there was no activity. In the veterans account, there was no activity. In the grant account, there was no activity. Still looming large on the delinquency page is North Depot, but you can see that the balances are zeroed out. So at the end of August, which is the end of the fiscal year, the delinquency percentage of all loans not designated as non-performing was 0.48.
So what prompted the payment for North Depot?
He wanted to sell the buildings that we were holding as collateral, so we told me at the sale.
Well, obviously, yeah, no, that's tremendous.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the VMR? I mean, is that
Dennis.
status?
think it's just a holding pattern. I was just talking to Chuck while we were having that. I believe that we were gonna try to hire outside counsel to try to do collection, because while I think our chances of getting much of anything out of them is probably slim, at this point, if you get something on the dollar for this, we can at least close it out of the books.
Well, we're in third position.
We're in a third position behind the US federal government, so.
Yeah, well, hey,
It's like a great big Hoover that cleans up everything in front of you.
It's a question, it's difficult because I understand that we need to do something and take some action, because we have to clear up
Yep,
our records, but it hurts me to spend money on outside counsel when we know that we're not
yeah.
gonna be
Yep.
getting the money back.
But
Well, I think
that-
the firms we could look at would do it on a contingency. They would basically, they would get something and then they would take a cut of whatever we get, which means you get even less, but
Okay, that's
we
fair.
could clear these off the books.
That'd be nice,
But I
yeah.
think what's important here is we can have an attorney dig into it and say, is there any opportunity?
Is there another way of looking? Is it somebody? who
Look at all
specializes
the
in
facts.
collection?
Everything that they have and say, is there a way to do it or not? If they tell us there's not, I
Right.
think that's a legitimate reason for us to take it off the books.
Right.
But if
they
we're just
have
saying,
everything hidden.
right, we've
from the
exhausted
file
all, but whatever they may find to be a possible option. I think that tells us we've done all we could.
Okay.
A tough situation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you ever get money from that couple that had? What's her name, Jackie and Mike? They had a wood making or something like that. Did we ever collect on that?
Jackie,
I'm familiar with this.
that may even predate me.
No, it was on the books last year. Alright, cause I ran into them, but they were headed to Italy for a vacation. Just saying.
We can- I'm not so sure what we're talking about, but we can talk about it offline, and yeah, if there's anything you can do to. Is there a motion on the pressure?
No.
New business for now?
So we're just not gonna, we're not gonna.
Yeah, so
Okay,
at this
okay.
point, we have quorum to run the meeting, but we have an abstention on the resolution, so we do not have quorum to vote on the resolution. So I think if we skip over new business, continue on to the remarks. If Juliet's able to join us before the time the meeting adjourns, we can make the vote. If not, we'll be asking to hold a special meeting. With pretty quick turnaround if we can manage it. I do have this set to go. Loans that are approved by the BLDC that need to be approved by city council. I do have this set to go next week. I can always pull it off the agenda as I could if this had passed today. If there's any opportunity for us to have a special meeting on Monday or another day that keeps us in line, I'd like to do that, but we can talk schedules after the meeting adjourns, try to find.
So why don't we go ahead and do your remarks then?
So I'll represent myself and the mayor today. He sends his regrets that he was unable to be here today. Lots of updates because I haven't seen many of you since July, so bear with me as I go through a whole series of things and feel free to stop me and ask questions. Kind of the biggest project that's on my desk right now is 187 Clinton, the affordable housing project that we're working on at the site of the old DMV, the old Vail Balloon site on Clinton Street. So that is going to city council for an ARPA allocation vote next Wednesday. And we're hopeful that that will be approved. That money is going towards pre-development costs. This property is in a brownfield opportunity area, which means that it's eligible for brownfield cleanup program tax credits. The way that program works is that any money you spend on pre-development costs, the state, upon successful completion of an application into the brownfield cleanup program, the state will actually refund you the money that you spent on pre-development. So the $2.2 million that the city of Binghamton has committed and that council will hopefully approve becomes 4.4 million by the end of the project. So it's a nice multiplier for us. It means that our money goes farther in the project. It gets a large, potentially blighted brownfield site back into productive use, enables them to move forward with their low-income housing tax credit applications. Right now, very optimistically, we'd be looking at a 2024 ground breaking with a 2025 completion. Realistically, given how long the state takes to turn some of these applications around, we're looking at a 2025 ground breaking with a 2026 completion. And of course, we'll kind of see how this all weathers out through this process. If they find significant contamination in the site, for instance, brownfield cleanup application just simply takes longer. And then, of course, they have to enter into the low-income housing tax credit application cycle and actually get those credits and have those credits close. So we're still a long ways off from seeing shovels in the ground there, but really great progress. And we're happy with the quality of the financing partner that the developer has brought in. Really experienced person working as a development consultant, formerly worked at HCR, has worked with some of the largest affordable housing complexes in the state, many of which are in New York City, but has also worked on the Inner Loop project in Rochester. Any of you have not gotten a chance to see that project, or if you remember what Rochester was like when the Inner Loop was up, very much recommend taking a trip. It's a completely different place. And it's a really cool mixed income neighborhood. They have, high-end market rate apartments, they have ultra low income apartments, and it's all centered around the Strong Museum of Play and the neighborhood of Play. There's hotel developments, restaurant developments, parking garages, housing, complete streets projects. It's really, really cool. And as the result of probably a decade or more of work in Rochester. So we're happy to have that caliber of financing and development partner on board for the project. Just down the street is 107 Clinton. This body approved moving $250,000 from our revolving loan account to community development block grant money to enable us to take what is currently just a kind of a crummy parking lot that the city owns on Clinton Street and turn it into what we're calling Clinton Street Square. Day to day, it's a parking lot with some green space and some stormwater management, but we're adding some features like an electric hookup and some seating that is yet to be determined. One thing we heard during the DRI public engagement last year was that people wanted more spaces to gather as a community. Clinton Street used to have something called Second Saturdays. There's been interest from the business community in bringing it back, but they're having trouble figuring out, what space might make the most sense. So this is kind of a strategically placed space that will support the businesses in just day-to-day having parking, but also the purpose of it is really to become that community gathering space to be able to bring in food trucks or have small scale events, do vending events, pop-up events. And so it kind of serves this dual purpose as well as just reinvigorating that lot that really is just, it's not an asset that I think we're currently have to take a lot of pride in. And so this investment would allow us to do that.
Is it free parking or is it gonna have one of those machines you gotta figure out and everything like that?
So currently it's free parking. It's been free parking for as long as I can remember. I think at this point, we're not seeing that it's so over capacity that we would need to control it by, having that, or we're not seeing people parking for weeks at a time or things like that. I think we'll have to see how it actually gets used to determine whether that still makes sense to have it be free parking, but to date, it hasn't really been an issue. And it's a nice amenity that we can offer to those businesses to be able to have that lot right at the end of that commercial row.
Instead of switching to paid, if it does become a problem, it might be a good idea just for signage at first, see if there's any
Right,
time.
yeah,
Are there
3
like
hours.
residential parkers there or is it mostly business?
I think it's mostly business.
Okay.
When I drive by, I don't see like the same 6 cars parked. It was really heavily used when the
DMV?
no, the office building
Health center was.
Thank you, yes. Was heavily used by those employees when that facility was open, but since it hasn't been, it's mostly, we see people go in and out of there kind of all day. So it's being more used along the lines of how we would want a parking lot like that to be used, which is good.
It's entirely possible if you do signage, probably not the kiosks, but if signage would probably be CDBG eligible if you wanted to modify it with signage.
That's great. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate that. Speaking of DRI, so the application deadline is tomorrow at 4 p.m. So I'm working on updating last year's DRI submittal. One thing that's been really great in going through the old application is how much of it still is true. I've updated numbers in terms of the economic forecast and our unemployment numbers and things like that, but really the vision of Clinton Street has remained from last year, and we've seen some really great investments from business owners and people who are renting spaces and starting stores and starting their entrepreneurial journeys on Clinton Street, which is exactly what we want to be happening. Getting these funds would allow us to accelerate that and really give back to those people that have invested on the street. But it is really great to know that even just the concentrated attention that we've spent on it, the amount of time we spent talking about it, has really elevated Clinton Street's profile. And people who come to us when we present them with, an available Clinton Street space are interested and excited about it. Whereas before, I think there was some thought that it was maybe like just not seen as an important commercial corridor. And Rachel and I did a bunch of interviews with business owners, which they're all filmed. We're working on putting together some collateral for that, but what everyone said was there's so much traffic, so much pedestrian traffic, so many cars. It really is just a great place to have a store because you get so many people just walking in and making significant purchases at amounts that I was surprised and encouraged to hear how much people were spending on Clinton Street. So I think all of the bones are there for this to be a really successful application. And, if we're unsuccessful again this year, we'll continue to advance these projects at a slower pace, but I'm optimistic the state will see and agree with our vision and hopefully provide us with some grant funds to support all of that. Just in terms of grant applications, we submitted a couple of CFAs this year, waiting to hear back on that. I have heard that our New York Main Street application, which was for the Arts District area facade grant, we had so many applications from that, was seen pretty favorably by the state. So I'm optimistic that we'll get some funding on that. And we also put in to hire a consultant to help us manage that process. Joel's experience taught us that it really helps to have additional capacity when you're managing a grant with that many rules and requirements. Rachel and I have been working on, we have CDBG COVID money through Steve's office, and we had this business support money that was getting increasingly difficult to spend because the easiest thing to do is to tie it directly to, we bought PPE, we installed, sneeze guards, we put in new HVAC. Sitting here in 2023, most people that made those expenses have either access programs for them or just it's so far in the past that they can't put together the receipts to even know how to get reimbursed. So one of the things we looked outside of Binghamton to see what people were doing with this money and saw that there was some of this loosely marketing initiatives that were happening. In order to tie it more directly to COVID, we are supporting people in attracting talent in hard to fill jobs, really at a small scale. We're not talking about, fixing the nursing shortage in the US through this money, but if Alexander's Cafe needs a cashier and they're having trouble finding someone who's the right fit and they don't have the time or the expertise to place ads and really get their word out there, this money can be used for that. And we've heard that the labor market is getting better, but still pretty tight. And as the national trends go, we tend to follow behind those. So I think the labor market in Binghamton is still a little bit tight, and hopefully this will help connect the right candidates with the right people and provide some technical assistance to folks who, when they're managing their budgets, they may not see the value in spending $1,500 on marketing, but with $100,000 in our bank, we can support a lot of different businesses that are trying to make sandwiches and do what they do best, and we can help them on the side of things that they may need some support on. An update on the Front Street sale that you all approved at the last meeting. I've been having trouble finding a well contractor to seal the well, so we're a little bit delayed on that. I've reached out to a bunch of people and they either didn't respond or didn't have the right capabilities to seal a well of the size that we had. So still working on getting someone on board to cap that so that we can sell this property without fear that there's going to be any environmental impacts down the line. So I'll keep you guys updated as that process advances. Cogeneration reuse, it's a city-owned property, but it is adjacent to the BLDC-owned Charles Street Business Park. That process is advancing. We're getting towards the end of our time working with NYSERDA and Labella on that project. I had a meeting with them this week where the reuse is really moving in a direction of this should be some sort of either incubator accelerator space that supports the battery and semiconductor industries, or if there was a company kind of in that world that wanted to take the property wholesale and turn it into something maybe in conjunction with the 8-acre parcel right to the north, that could be a really attractive development opportunity. So we're holding off until I have all the final information from them before I engage with actually marketing this and getting people on board to talk about kind of what could be possible there, but that should be coming down the line later this fall into the winter. I have lots of other stuff, but I want to make sure I'm using everyone's time well. Patrick and I, not in his capacity as BLDC president, but in his real day job,
I don't have a real day job, but keep going.
we went up to is it technically SUNY Poly? So a campus of, a SUNY campus that focuses on nanotechnology and New York Creates is there, and they focus on the semiconductor industry. And really what we're talking about with the IDA is, in the agency, how do we position Binghamton? You know, we have the Micron investment in semiconductors in Syracuse. We have this big cluster in Albany, and we're kind of at this confluence that connects to New York City and Philadelphia and Buffalo. And how can we be part of that in a supply chain way? We're not going to be the 100 acres, massive facilities, but you know, we can be the 5 acres, small scale people that are contributing to that. And so we're looking at how we fit into that, and definitely see the Charles Street Business Park as being a piece of that. We'll be submitting it to the New York State Economic Development Council for a site survey that they're putting together to try to attract semiconductor industry to New York. So still early days on that, but I think it's an exciting opportunity. And obviously, as we know, there's so much investment happening in Syracuse. We'd like to see some of that right on down 81 to Binghamton, and we see it as a really strong possibility. Parlor City Commons and Memorial Bridge and Henry Street. So I think you guys are all aware we're working on a plan for redoing Parlor City Commons, which is the block between Washington and State Street, that pedestrian area back there. Working on reimagining Memorial Bridge to be more pedestrian friendly, and we're also working on a full redo of Henry Street between right around State Street, which is right around where the Deco District project ends, all the way up through the stadium. That road, if you've driven on it, it's way too wide. It's not pedestrian friendly. It's very there's no greenery. There's nothing really interesting about it. And with so much activity at the stadium, and if you've gone to a game, you've seen people walking down Henry Street. We could see that being really great if people park downtown, go to dinner, and then feel like they have a really great walkway pathway right to the stadium or to Amici or Dorenzo's or any of the other activity that's happening in that little small commercial corridor. So excited about that. Those are all things that are coming down the line in the next few years, and we'll, based on budget and timing and availability of staff, those things will be coming out, but you'll see activity on all of those. A couple of quick things on housing. The Crowley Loft project is advancing. I believe I know they did their pilot inducement. I believe their pilot was approved. They're working on getting their general contractor lined up. And then, I mean, they're really advancing very quickly compared to a lot of the other development projects. And this is really their only project, which is nice when we're working with some of the smaller developers, that they can focus in on this. Larger developers are great because they bring experience and financing and all of that, but they tend to have their attention split across a number of different projects. So it's nice to have that one moving along. 200 Court Street, which is the old sheltered workshop. They just had their pilot inducement meeting. So they're working on their financing. That's a mixed income, 56 units of supportive housing, but there's also affordable housing in there. It's a partnership with Helio Health. It's based on a model that's worked in both Syracuse and Rochester to provide not just affordable housing, but also those services that so many people who are currently unhoused or in housing that's inappropriate for their needs really need to access. So I think that'll be a really exciting project, and it's a huge building right downtown. So the renovation of that is going to be great as well, and bring a lot of employees. I mean, they're going to have staff for the day, they're going to have overnight staff, so there's going to be lots of people in and out of there who need to.
$35 million investment or something.
I was just gonna ask how
Huge.
much money they're
Big
putting into
investment.
that. That's a lot,
Yeah.
Big investment.
And
a lot of work in there.
Absolutely, and it'd be great to activate that. Obviously, as we know that we had people remote and not fully back, both at Security Mutual and Hinman, Howard, and Cattell. That part of town has seen like a really big decrease in the amount of office workers who were down there. And so getting some more staff in that part of town, I think, would really invigorate some of those commercial spaces that are over there as well. Just, I know one of the things we were here today to talk about was a loan for a new restaurant in Binghamton, but just to speak to the fact that you guys have, I'm sure, all seen the high number of announcements that new restaurants are coming to Binghamton. I think it's really exciting that people see Binghamton as such a good market for that. One thing that we've been talking about internally is we have all these restaurants, we're bringing all these people down, they're going to dine. What else do they want to be doing? And how can we be attracting those other things that bring people to a community besides just food and drink? You know, bookstores, flower arranging classes, boutiques. And we have a lot of great things like that, but how do we get even more of a critical mass so that Binghamton can become a destination for, you know, a day, an afternoon, a weekend? People will enjoy multiple restaurants, but also be spending their money in the currently existing storefronts in downtown, but also in some new faces that we're hoping to attract. So that'll be kind of our next, once we get some of these restaurants up and going, and we start seeing how much pedestrian and vehicular traffic that brings downtown, being able to leverage some of that activity into attracting some new folks into downtown. And then I'm gonna turn it over to Rachel to quickly talk about the step-up grant and the facade grant. The facade grant, I think more primarily, but
Yeah, so the facade grant is great. We have 4, I think actually maybe 5 projects completed, and then one project that's kind of halfway through, and I have some before and afters. I should have put the addresses on, but this is the Brunelli Gallery on State Street. I mean, huge difference. Oh yeah, Bob, if you don't mind scrolling. Yeah. This is the Serafini building on Upper State Street. I love the way that the gray looks. I think they did such a great job. And right across the street from that is the makerspace, which will be done hopefully soon. This is a little bit difficult to see, but the jog 33, this is Court Street, 33 Court Street. He really brightened up his storefront and did some new signage. That's kind of like is part of the project.
if you were to look closer at that, if you were like to walk by that in the before picture, you would see that the wood that is light gray in the bottom picture was, you know, splintered and not in good shape. So in addition to the painting, he kind of made some of those improvements.
He did, yeah, he repaired wood and also did some masonry work on that gray part on the end, so. This is Park Outdoor, which got, you know, the classic gray paint job. I feel like all of our projects have been a gray paint job, kind of nice, like. And then this is just like a gorgeous, you can't really tell, but if you go up to this door and look at it, it's a very beautiful door. So they just, that's the Phelps Mansion Museum. Yeah, they've just completely refinished the wood that was there. So it was beautiful and it is now even more beautiful. And I don't have a picture of the Clinton Ward project, but they got a really great awning up as part of their facade grant. So that looks really, really great as well.
That one's on our Facebook page if you do want to see it. And I think what's nice about this is most of these were pretty small dollar projects that you just saw. We do have a number of larger projects on the books that this board approved, but it's great to be able to take someone who's like, I have a $10,000 project and $2,500 of support or $5,000 of support is going to make this so much easier for me as a small business. The fact that we're able to, and through this body, we've been supported in helping people make those investments, I think is really great. And we have quorum for a vote now, which is incredible. Does anybody have any questions on the, now I'm really glad I went through my whole. No, you're totally understandable, Juliet. I appreciate that you're here. Anyone have any questions? Comments? I have the number somewhere, but I think to date, it's like for every dollar we spend, there's at least $1 in private money spent. I think we're over,
Yeah, yeah, a little bit over.
And then I think on the portfolio at large, we're committed to like a 1 to 1.3 ratio.
That sounds right, yeah.
Yeah, so for every dollar we invest, we're getting, you know, more than 100% invested in private money as well, in addition to the aesthetic value of this, how this improves the character of the buildings, the neighborhood as well, so. Very exciting. Continue.
Great stuff.
You're getting that money out the door.
Love it. A lot of activity.
What happens when we take 1 month off?
And Innovation
Oh,
Associates?
yes, thank you so much, Susan. Joel, do you want to speak to that, since that is, I can give lots of credit to Joel for how this all played out.
Well, I can just tell you that the Innovation Associates is moving into, of course, the Saberon building in the Charles Street Business Park, about a 38,000 square foot building, and they're currently moving their administrative jobs from Johnson City, from Maison Road to their, I think, intending to be open in another week or so.
Yes, they had to be out by the end of this
and
week at their old
It's a
facility.
$4 million move for them, moving large pieces of equipment It's exciting if you drive over there and see what's going on. The building's being transformed. The exterior of it's all cleaned up. There are new plantings and so forth on the exterior. Did an addition on the front for it. What they do, of course, is manufacturing pill dispensing equipment. They sell systems all over the United States, all over the world, to large pharmacies to that might be found in hospitals, large hospitals or military bases. The technology that goes into this equipment is amazing. I mean, it's visualization equipment that detects the size and weight of pills. They can detect the shape of it and count out prescriptions, do thousands of prescriptions an hour in some of their advanced systems. Completes all the billing, packages it up in plastic bags and so forth. Just an amazing company that's kind of been under the radar for a long time. And we're thrilled that they're locating in the Charles Street Business Park. That's helping to revitalize the first ward of Binghamton, and certainly will help factor into our DRI application.
Exactly.
So
And their sign off front says it's their global headquarters in Binghamton, New York.
Love it.
Nothing makes me happier.
It's
Yeah.
great.
So yeah, if you guys have time, I definitely encourage you to drive by it. It'll look, it's the same building, but they put their own spin on it. They've got their signature purple going. It looks great. And they're excited to move in, and we're excited to have them.
Awesome.
So we'll do some event or some press with them later on. They want to get more in with the community, learn, get connected with the businesses, figure out lunch deals and company picnics and things like that. So they're really looking forward to being in the first ward and becoming part of the neighborhood. So it's a really great fit.
Wonderful.
And it's spawning further investment in the Charles Street Business
Yeah.
Park, so.
Absolutely. Thank you for your reminder, Susan. I appreciate that.
So let's get to the resolution, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. This is resolution 24-1. Resolution of the Binghamton Local Development Corporation approving a revolving loan to Puerto Roja LLC in an amount not to exceed $150,000 from the revolving loan fund for renovations, restaurant fixtures and equipment. There's been some press about this the last few days, but Rachel, you want to give us an overview of
Yes.
what's happening here?
So this is a new restaurant venture that's going in at 59 Court Street. The developer or the, people who are going to be the borrowers are the folks that currently run 205 Dry and Uncorked. They've had really great success over there. So they're moving over to Court Street for another high-end Latin concept restaurant that will kind of cater towards young professionals and people kind of like up through, she has ages 28 to 50, I guess, that has borne out in her research, which is great. So not directed at the student crowd. Probably similar in price point to 205 Dry. And it will probably attract a similar crowd to like 205 and Remlix, that kind of thing. And so that'll be great. It'll activate a space that has been vacant for a long, long time. And it'll be something kind of unique for the downtown. There's not like a sit down high-end Latin restaurant in the downtown currently. So I think it's like stable perspective. So if you look at the second page of this, the BLDC investment that they're asking for is $150,000, and that will be matched with about 10% equity from the owners, and then $100,000 loan from M&T. So they are just doing like a home equity loan with M&T, and our loan will be kind of completely separate, but it'll all support this same project. And then with 10% equity from the borrower. And yeah, for collateral, we have suggested that we take a first position lien on one of the properties that they own, and then the FF&E of the restaurant. So, which is pretty standard when we've done restaurant projects or like, renovation retail projects in the past. We've done lien on the FF&E, which is kind of like additional collateral coverage for us. The cash flow of their current businesses looks really good, and the debt service is certainly manageable as well within the range of what we have, what our loan committees have wanted to see in the past. So you can see that on the global cash flow analysis part of the page. And the loan committee met last week and did recommend this loan for approval by the board.
You want to add anything? You don't have to, I just give you the
Oh, no,
opportunity.
no, I mean, typically, when you're looking at a restaurant from a lending perspective, there's a red flag because it's a restaurant. But in the case of these owners and their success and their liquidity, the loan committee felt pretty strongly that this is something that the city wants to support for many reasons. So, that being said, this is the kind of project that we want to be involved in renovating space that is unique and kind of a different demographic. So that is why the committee felt so strongly to approve.
Susan, what's the prime rate today?
8.5.
8.5, so we're gonna give them at 6%, is that?
I think it works out to, 6 and a little bit, 6.3 or something.
Not in the day before.
That in itself makes it,
We're locked in when we do the commitment letter.
and the business income on here, Rachel, you say is 170,000, is that from all their businesses, or is that just this business?
So that is from the current restaurant business.
The 205.
205 and on.
And the other one, right?
Yeah, it's together. So they report together.
Okay,
I also want to point out that this is a revolving loan, which is always exciting to be able to use our revolving loan fund. It's much harder for us to use. So they've committed to 4.25 full-time equivalent positions. If you guys have been to 205, you see that they are good at keeping long-term staff. They, build. I don't know if I would say career jobs, but I think in some cases career jobs, because these are high-end, highly skilled bartenders and servers, managers, event people. On court, they have instructors, so they already carry a significant employee load, and so 4.25 is we think underestimating what they'll probably get to, but we always like to make sure that these loans are realistic. We know that they can achieve these milestones, and if they go above and beyond, that's even better.
And the property on the Roy Street is free and clear. We would be in a first lien position there.
Any questions?
You know when the estimated closing date's gonna be, if this was approved today?
I mean, it would be
It
as,
has to be voted on by city council, which won't happen until not next Wednesday, but 2 weeks after that.
so assuming that, it is approved by city council, I would say, and also they have to close on the M&T
Correct.
loan first, but I think because it's a home equity loan, that will be quick. So I would say by the end of October, we could shoot for, it'll take a thing where we have to do our own mortgage and our own, UCC takes a little bit longer, but,
Can we detail on I'm gonna check with my HUD rep, but can we potentially put in the loan docs that the restricted loan portion is just for equipment? Because that can make it from a 15-minute environmental review to a 30-day environmental review, which is why so I'll find out if that qualifies,
and
because there's
non-renovations.
renovations. That can potentially kick it into the longer environmental review.
Just furniture, fixtures, equipment.
oh,
Yeah,
just
so, but-
FF&E and not renovation.
Yeah, so if
Okay.
if that's if HUD accepts that, I don't know if HUD will approve that.
Do you have
Um,
language that
Yeah, that should
you
be
would
fine.
include for that?
I would have to just come up with something that
Okay.
just the details of the restrictions well, it should be in there anyway, because the restricted loan should have a detail of what the loan's for. Anyway,
Yeah,
but-
take a look at the, this narrative, and if we need to add additional things specifically for HUD, we can do that.
yeah, the main issue is because they're doing renovation with it too, and so HUD's either gonna say everything they're doing falls under this umbrella because in per penny and per pound, or they're gonna say you're dictating it's just for equipment, and that just makes it easier. So you're talking 30 days, 15 minutes, so.
Yeah, I think that that's
Hopefully we can do that.
definitely doable. We can line out that, our portion of the funds to be
Yeah,
used for
the-
FF&E and
the-
their
the-
portion
use
and
makes
the
sense.
M&T portion to do the renovation.
Oh, it does make it, well, yeah, if they were building a brand new restaurant from the ground floor, that's a 6-month ERR.
Okay.
They're renovating, that's 30 days. The main issue is ship out. That's gonna be the main issue almost every single time with environmental reviews that involve construction. So,
Yeah, so and I think even even a 30-day review is not gonna be the
Okay.
worst thing in the world, because if we're looking end of October, and even if we went into, beginning of November. It doesn't, the resolution is specifically worded to allow them to move forward even when they haven't gotten some of their full approvals yet, but we are looking for evidence of progress towards their COD approvals, their planning approvals, that they've made a good faith effort, so.
Okay.
There's some other things that we need to have in there, so if it does need to be 30 days, I think that's fine, but if we can figure that out sooner rather than later and start that 30-day clock. Just starting it as soon as possible would be great.
do they have like a detailed list of exactly what needs to be renovated?
We can look through the documents.
If you have that, send it to me, because that's what I'm gonna have to base it off of.
Okay, I mean, I have a list of the things that they will be purchasing in terms of fixtures and equipment.
That's,
The equipment's kind of like, it's just equipment. It's
Well-
the renovations, that's what matters.
Some of it,
For-
being
Okay.
like what their wall coverings, lighting.
Yeah, all those are, I
But-
think are kind of considered incidentals from SHPO's perspective, at least interior. Now, they're not doing any exterior work, are they? Okay, that's a thing under itself, but, okay.
But yeah, Steve, we can certainly, if we need to have Elise and Philip come in and kind
Yeah.
of just talk through, we certainly can.
Yeah, okay,
Just
great.
to make sure this is all good from HUD's end.
Okay, anything further? Can I have a motion, please? Ron, thank you. Second,
second.
thank you, Sophia. Any further discussion?
I think just for this one, do we just note that that was abstaining, or do we have to have it like a roll call vote, or what do we want to do?
I think we can note
We
that
just
she
make
is
a note.
abstaining. I think
No,
because we
she's
have the
good.
video, we should be
Yeah.
okay.
Perfect.
But maybe if everyone can really clearly raise your hands if you are voting.
All in favor?
I,
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone.
Any further business?
Second? All right, thanks very much.